Okay, so we are here to discuss the book Charity Bash by Sharon Geltner. And it's actually really interesting. I just read it this week and it was really fun. So let me just show real quick. You can see the right behind her in the background, we have the cover to the book. It's really funny. If you want to see a little bit more close up, I think I can show it. Let's share my screen and show you that. Oh, there you go. Yeah, there it is. I think it's really funny with the dog and the tiara. I have a tiara too, but I don't think it really looks like the Florida type tiara. It's more like a fairy type tiara, but I'll put it on for the sake.
I love it.
Thank you. So one thing I was looking at is your book is basically about, well, there's a murder. It's a murder mystery, but it's set in Florida around kind of like the rich elite people there. And looking a little bit at your bio on Goodreads, I saw that you were a reporter for a while. So do you want to tell us maybe a little about maybe the inspiration you have for this book, or maybe your past as a reporter or current state?
Sure. My sordid past. There's a couple things that inspired me. One is, you're right, I was a reporter in Boca Raton, Florida, for Knight Ridder newspapers. And my biggest story was about a countess who was the town's biggest philanthropist. She had given away $22 million, which was worth a lot more back then. Not that it's chicken feed now. She'd given it to area charities, and her name, her title, and her husband's name and his title was on practically every building in town, from the train station to the college campuses to theaters, everything else. Turns out her title was completely phony baloney. It was as fake as the tiara on your head. Although that may be a real...
It's not real, no.
When the story broke, she was furious. She had bought the title for about 20 grand from a phony con man in Palm Beach, no less, because Palm is infested with them. She had phony medals. And actually, I was kind of prepared for this. I don't know if you can. This is what she looks like, or looked like. She passed at the age of 104 a couple years back. Anyway, the countess was furious, and she told all the charities in town and the city council that if I was not fired and run out of town with my editor, she was going to cut off every single philanthropy of every dime she had. And so there was a lot of pressure to get us fired and run out of town and tarred and everything else. And around the country, and I later saw that papers in Paris and Frankfurt had covered it. So to this day, people still ask me about the Countess flap. We ended up keeping our jobs, and she ended up relenting after the city council. Well, the city held a big rally and named a day in her honor, the Countess Henrietta de Holmley Appreciation Day. And after that, she relented, and we were allowed to keep our jobs. But this was real. I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but there was a lot of pressure back then. Supposedly there was a riot that was going to happen in the newspaper parking lot, that kind of thing. So that was my original inspiration. But then after that, I began working for nonprofits in Palm Beach County, and in the Island Beach in particular, which is one of the wealthiest places in our country. And I was seeing that a lot of this stuff that may seem silly to normal people was kind of the way things are there. So I combined, the original inspiration was to combine those two crazy incidents, or those two crazy ways of life here, and then put it into a mystery format. And that's where the inspiration came from.
That was so interesting to me. As soon as I realized that you had kind of lived this lifestyle, because your main character is also a reporter. Well, she's kind of a reporter. She also works for a charity. That made it like so much more real to me. And I looked at some of your reviews on Goodreads, and there was a lot of people that said like she got a lot of the heart of this society correct. So I thought that was
Yeah.
so interesting. So what inspired you to make it a murder mystery among the Florida elite?
Well, that's a good question. I had a literary agent at the time. What they really encourage writers to do is write either romance or mystery, because those are the two really popular genres. So I figured I'd write a mystery because I wanted to see some people bumped off. But and there's also a lot of bookstores that are dedicated to mysteries, like murder mystery bookshops. So that was the original impetus, as I was following direction. So there was three things. It was the Countess, the vengeful Countess, my life serving the wealthy and the elite in order to get donations, or panhandling among the wealthy, and then the advice from a literary agent to do a mystery, and I combined all three.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, honestly, like just since that you've been in this industry, it's so much more interesting to me. And it was interesting in the
Oh,
book that it was following a nonprofit organization, but there wasn't much focus in the book on actual charity. Almost all the focus was on the very wealthy and just the politics. So talk a little bit about like the
yeah, that's a very
elite
good.
politics you have in your book.
Well, the thing is with the elite that the vast majority of them do not give to charity, believe it or not. It's not a matter if you can afford it, it's a matter of generosity. Generosity is a trait rarer than great wealth. So the few people that do give, all the charities are going to several wells, and the wells sometimes get kept out, or the wells are not interested in all charities. So there's a great deal of, pardon, well, flattery, praise, sycophancy, to use perhaps a crude phrase, bootleg or sucking up. And I don't mean to be crude, but that's the way it is. Charities have to do that. They have great missions, most of them, and they have to describe the mission very well and in a compelling way. But a lot of this is who you know and who you can ask for the money and what they think of you personally. And a lot of what they think of you personally for them. I'm sorry to be crude, but the way it is. There is a book that was printed a few years ago, a nonfiction book called Winners Take All, where he's discussing the same phenomenon from the viewpoint of how charities are missing out and how society misses out, because donors are only giving to charities that flatter them lavishly, and they are rewarded for their donations with huge tax write-offs. But that means society as is not deciding who needs help and how it can be allocated. It's really more to the Bill Gates of the world. Mackenzie Bezos Scott happens to be incredibly generous and incredibly wealthy, but she's in the minority. She doesn't seem to care if she's flattered or not. She's going to give money. But it's really going to the tech titans of the world and the old money of the world, who basically want to dance to their tune, or the taps are going to be shut off, kind of like our little countess in Boca Raton, Florida. She was just more obvious about it, perhaps. But it's that same attitude. You dance to my tune, you pay. I guess you have to pay for my metaphors musically. But if you don't dance to their tune, you don't get the money. But as wealth accrues to fewer and fewer people, they have more and more power, not just within technology and business, but in society at large, because fewer people can afford to donate. And the more they donate, the larger tax write-offs they get off. You and I and other normal or regular average Joe taxpayers and workers are helping to pay for their largesse. So it's really crazy. And he's the only author I've really seen take the bull by the horns on that. His sense is strictly nonfiction, but what he's describing is really true. I just made it perhaps more entertaining and bumped someone off.
Yeah,
that was kind of a long answer, but that's what's going on.
Yeah, and I think your book made it a lot more palatable to where we were able to go in and kind of see how that society works a little bit, but in a fiction story. And that was very entertaining to read, but also kind of educational. It's like a short murder mystery, but it was kind of educational in how all of that actually works. One thing I also noticed is that your main
Thank you.
character kind of has a moral code. She seems to be like kind of the best person there, even though she's not perfect. Do you have any reason that you made your main
Right.
character kind of seem like a good person?
Well, in any book, you want at least one character to be likable. Uh, I've read books that were fabulously well written, won lots of awards, but every single character was really mean or unkind or depressing or self-centered. I know we all have those flaws, but you want to read at least one positive character, right? And you want to be able to compare at least one character, one honest person, the rest of the you're probably on. I should keep it on. But anyway, and also writing, I just wanted to focus on a person who had a moral code, because there's got to be at least one decent human being in the whole mess.
Yeah, for sure. So despite all of this, you've worked and you've seen a lot of what happens in the real world among the elite. Do you like still have kind of a positive view of human nature? Do you think most people are good, or do you think most people are highly corruptible? What's kind of your opinion on that after working in this industry?
Question. Geez, am I bitter much? I think we're all born good and with a clean slate.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the older we get, I think people are basically good. The question was kind of a compound. Are they highly corruptible? If your salary depends on it, you pretend to believe almost anything. Some other writer said that. I think, unfortunately, although I do believe most people know the difference between right and wrong, they tend to go which way the wind blows. And when you're talking money of making a living at work, and you're talking money to try to get people to donate to you, yeah, charity can be highly corruptible. And that's why I think charities like politics and sausage, you don't want to see how it's made.
Like politics and sausage. I like that. That's really funny. Yeah, and I definitely could see that.
Yeah,
If your income is on the
Yeah.
line, obviously people are willing to do a lot more things in order to basically survive and pay their rent and everything. So that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about your
Yeah.
book cover. So we're talking about the elite in Florida, and obviously there's a murder mystery in the book as well. That's interesting to follow. What inspired the dog with the tiara on your book cover?
Well, I had a really talented artist that I hired, Sharon Koskoff, Koskoff. She's been nominated for Florida Artist of the Year. She's a huge expert in Art Deco. She takes tour buses at the beach and other places. And I really wanted her to design the cover. Well, during the pandemic, she adopted a pandemic pup. Buffy June is the name. And we decided that puppies are a very big part of Palm Beach. There's even a Blessing of the Pets Day at the local church, Bethesda by the Sea. And I had sent her some photographs I had found of very pampered pups on thrones. And yes, it is a thing. They're not just little teacups and Hermes bags, they're on thrones. So Buffy, her 6 or 8-year-old pup, who was adopted from the Peggy Adams Animal Rescue League, speaking of charity, local charity, she posed her and draped her in a tiara and pearls. And that little noose in her mouth is the shiny sheet, which is the Palm Beach Daily News. It is the paper for the society set. And they will actually try to bribe reporters so that they can be quoted in the paper and, more importantly, photographed in the paper. So that's how the idea came about. And then we just decided a swimming pool background's really cool. The colors of Palm Beach are like coral and aqua. And she just went with it, and she's very talented. I'm really glad she did it.
Yeah, it really stood out to me when I first heard and found out about your book. The cover immediately intrigued me, so I think it definitely did its job there. So we kind of talked a little bit about what the book's about, a little bit about what your background and why your background makes this fiction book even more educational and interesting. What would be your ultimate pitch to readers to pick up this book? Why should they want to read it?
That's a good question too. They should read it because first and foremost, it's funny. I really love how you said it was educational. That was my thought. But I've also taught school, I forgot to tell you that, many different ages. However, if you want to educate someone, it's good to entertain someone. And so what kind of entertainment is better than funny? And people do love dramatic books and, tear jerkers and all that, but everyone loves to laugh. And there's a lot fewer humorous books than there are the really sad books. So my pitch is you'll have fun, you'll learn something. This is how they used to say the other half, it's not even the other 1%. We're probably talking 1/10 of 1% these days, due to how income levels have really separated and the hollowing out of the middle class. I would say just read something funny and learn something about a very elite group you're not going to find out otherwise. And I will say one last thing. I don't know if this is my last thing or not. A lot of people who are nonprofit fundraisers wanted to know how I had the nerve to write the book, because they know that it's the truth, but they figured, it's not something you want to actually publicize because, I don't know, maybe they would feel they would be banned from Boca as well. So I kind of took that as a compliment in a weird roundabout way, that the book was truthful.
Yeah, so for readers who are listening, you should pick it up because there's some people who don't want you to know this stuff, and it's also very entertaining.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's
anything else you'd like to add, Sharon?
Well, actually, your pitch was the best. It shows you always need a fresh pair of eyes. You're right. Read this book because someone doesn't want you to. That's why you should read it. Well, thank you very much for the interview. I really loved your questions, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. So definitely check out Sharon's book. There's a link in the description of the video. If you go down there, there is a link to go buy the book. So yeah, someone doesn't want you to read it. It really gets into some really elite, cool stuff, and it's also entertaining. So definitely check it out. And I will see you later. Thanks for coming on, Sharon, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Allison. I appreciate it.